Good day everyone, good morning, evening and afternoon. Today is Sunday, it's the weekend, and in a day like this, I wanted to try to console you. I wanted to try to make you feel a little bit better, because what we have gotten yesterday was yet another, the 21st update, the 21st blue post about the hunters in Dragonflight, about the talent trees in Dragonflight for hunters. So hunters have gotten their talent trees revealed 30 days ago, and in 30 days they have gotten 21 updates, 8 of which were talents, swapping around, talents changes and moving around the tree, etc, etc. And yesterday's post from the Blizzard dev Nymox, in charge of the hunter talent tree, also in charge of the shaman talent tree, it was yet more changes, not just minor tweaks like lone survivors cooldown reduction being reduced, or changing legacy of the windrunners to be a 2-point node instead of 1-point node, but even flat out adding new talents like bullet storm in the marksmanship talent tree. And this is, as you can see here, from a long list of talent changes and swaps and additions that hunters have received. Now, with this, some players have started to feel a little bit left out. Some memes, inevitably, have started being born about guys, do we just have like the Blizzard Hunter dev and nobody else is working right now? Is everyone on vacation in summer and the Hunter guy is the only one who took the vacation in winter and is the only one who's working now, or what? Because when you go and check the other classes in Dragonflight, you have the Paladin Talent 3, which was released almost 3 weeks ago, who has already gotten a couple of changes, and recently they have gotten the Holy Paladin 3 with already a blue post pointing out a few soon coming changes for the Paladin 3. You have gotten Warriors. The Warrior Talent 3 came out 12 days ago, and it has already gotten a handful of changes, and the discussion is there. You have, of course, the Shaman 3, which was hailed as the better, one of the better, if not the best, of the class talents in Dragonflight. It did already receive a major overhaul in talent changes, particularly for Elemental. Out of the 3 specs, Elemental was the one that was changed the most, and the General 3 has gotten a few changes as well. And then you have all of the rest, from the newest released one, Warlock, to all the way back to the early released ones, and everyone in between, mages, priests, druids, death knights and rogues as well, have gotten very few changes, if not no changes at all. But what's worse is the lack of communication. For rogues, for example, perhaps it's not as bad, because the dev in charge of the rogue talent 3 reels is posting 24/7, is very active on the Rogue Discord, the Ravenholt Discord for rogues. It is there discussing and debating all of the feedback given by rogue players. They had their hand in convincing the dev to bring back to the Rogue Talent 3 abilities like Kingsbane, abilities like Serrated Bonespike, the Necrolord Covenant ability, were added back into the Talent 3 after discussing with the player base. So even if there hasn't really been any blue posts, any official changes for rogues, for example, the discussion is still there. The players know that they have some sort of bridge with the developers, they have some sort of communication with the developers for the talents of rogue, but many of the other classes left behind, like druids, like priests, like mages, haven't really gotten anything so far. Druid and priest are perhaps the largest and biggest outliers, because they came out a month ago. In fact, exactly 31 days ago today. So we are on the month anniversary of the release of the druid and the priest talent trees, and yet after a month they have not gotten touched once. Even the talents as a class being released 20 days after priest and druid, like warrior, already got a handful of changes, yet priests and druids have been left behind. And then you have mages as well, being released almost 3 weeks ago, still no changes. So obviously, the fact that we are getting nearly borderline once a day blue posts of changes for hunters, while many other players first got excited about their class talents being released, and then they saw the things that were wrong, they saw the things that they wished to to communicate, to discuss with the developers, to voice their complaints or concerns or even their good points about the talent trees. Yet more and more days went by and still we saw no changes, so players got a little bit unsettled about the lack of communication for their class, and as if that's not enough, their next door neighbor, the spoiled little hunter boy, was throwing birthday parties every day with plenty of changes and trying out new things and new swap arounds of their talents, new added abilities, new talents, old talents and whatnot, while they were just rolling their thumbs waiting for anything to happen. So it's because of this. It's because of this that at the start of the video I said I wanted to make a video to try to console you, to try to make you feel a little bit better. Why? Number one, no, I am not biased since I play Shaman and my Shaman tree looks just fine, so I have no issue not getting communication from Blizzard, because if Dragonflight went live now, I would be perfectly fine with the Shaman talent trees. That's not the reason why I'm not that worried about this lack of changes so far to so many of the specs. The reason is, number one, it is worth mentioning in case you're not aware, that Blizzard has assigned different developers to different talent trees, to different classes, so to speak. So not everyone is in charge of working on every single class. In fact, most of the developers will be in charge of one to perhaps two of the classes, and sometimes not even all of the specs within the same class. So you have 1 to 2 devs at best to communicate with you about the changes to your spec, the spec you're interested in, which means as a result, not all the developers will be behaving, will be communicating, will be carrying on their work about tuning the talent trees in the same way. For example, you had something like priests, where the priest dev in charge of the priest trees, Frozzo, said, we are on purpose taking some time to make sure our next steps are hitting the right notes with priest, and that they address a lot of the feedback provided by the community. But this was almost 3 weeks ago, right? So even though you are told, hey guys, chill, hey guys, wait, we are gathering information, we are getting ready for the changes, you as a player still have to go several weeks without any further news about your talents in Dragonflight. Number two, the other point about the situation for these talents is that at the end of the day, we are still in the alpha. Even though the cycle, as we have talked about this multiple times, even though the alpha plus beta cycle of Dragonflight will be one of the shortest ones in any WoW expansion, because the alpha came out a month ago, approximately, according to my sources, which is just, dude, trust me, the beta is coming out in 2 weeks. So you're gonna have like a 40 days long alpha and then like a 3 months long beta, which is very, very, very short. Still, we are talking about 3.5, if not more, 4 months before the release of the expansion. So talking about why is my class, why is my poor feral druid being left behind with no changes from the devs? Yes, it's annoying because you see all around you many other classes or specs getting changes and getting to try out, getting to theory craft and to play around the talent builds and to play around the talent calculators every time there is a change, while you, poor Shadow Priest, are stuck with the original reveal of the talents, plus, to make it even worse, the talents weren't even good, so you are still waiting, you are eagerly waiting for some positive changes, and yet you are still missing out on these. You still have to remember that it's gonna be several months before the expansion releases, which means there is still plenty of time before you actually get your full version, your completed version of your class before the expansion releases. And I am telling you this with the experience of someone who had to make several videos about every single class and spec back in the Shadowlands beta, where I was making videos while trying out all of the different rotations, all of the different single target and AoE builds in the beta, looking at the simulations coming out for all of the specs, trying to figure out which of the specs were prone to be meta and to be strong at the release of Shadowlands. And I can tell you that many, if not most, of these talent builds came to be, were fully finished between the talent changes, the legendary changes, the conduit changes, all that stuff came to be in the last weeks of the beta. So thinking that it's already too late, You know, the expansion has been ruined. I wanted to play Mistweaver, and I don't even have a talent out. You know, I wanted to play Mage, I wanted to play Frost Mage, but Frost talents came out 3 weeks ago and Blizzard didn't say anything about them. So it's all over, there is no more hope. Actually, the majority of the changes usually come much later on, when you start getting simulations working, when you start getting your full talent trees fleshed out, and you can actually try your spec in its full power. Take in mind, if you're not in the alpha, like myself, of course, the CEO of the No Alpha Club, if you're not in the alpha, right now, the max level in the alpha isn't even max level. You're still missing 4 to 6 to 8 talent points for your full build, depending on the alpha version. So you don't even have max level, you don't even have all of the talents to spend. First raid is going to have a tier set with set bonuses which you don't have to test right now, and finally most of the talent builds will likely be changed as we get closer to the release of the expansion. So that is why I wanted to try to make a video to ease some of the concerns of the players being worried that if my class doesn't get an update to its talents in the next week or so, it means the class is dead and there is no more hope for Dragonflight. That is not going to be the case for every single one of these classes and specs. Just try to think about it logically. What is the point in complaining about the lack of changes to Balanced Druid when monks and demon hunters don't even have a working and playable class in the alpha right now? What should they say about their class right now? So that is the point of the day. Please don't take it too seriously for now. If you don't really see that many changes, you don't really see that many updates, and you don't see the behavior of your class dev to be the same as the behavior of the current hunter and shaman dev, which is very vocal about the changes to the class he's in charge at, and his continuous talks and reworkings of the talent tree that hunter has gone through right now. That doesn't mean it's gonna make the hunter class much better than the other specs that haven't gotten as many changes. For all you know, 1 week from now there's going to be a massive dump of talents from the priest devs, changing many of the talents in the class and the specs of priest, or maybe not in the next week, maybe 2 weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks from now, or maybe 1 month from now. Ultimately, it does not matter until Dragonflight is released. Yes, we can get slowly and progressively more worried once we get into the beta. Once we have the beta, once we have the max level where we can use all of our talents, once we can get all of the talents working properly, once simulations are going to start coming out, and even we can start getting vendors in the beta to start trying out the tier sets and the powers we will get from the tier sets. Pretty much the only major board power in the first season of Dragonflight will be the tier set. Once we are at that point, 1 month from now, maybe 2 months from now, if we still have some severe lack of communication and changes and updates with several of the classes, then there is where it's gonna be actually meaningful and worthwhile and understandable to be concerned about the state of your class and the state of your spec. But at the moment, I wouldn't be as concerned and I wouldn't be as worried. I know it's annoying, I know it kind of feels bad to see changes all around and people excited to talk about their favorite thing all around you while you're stuck with nothing. That's not too good of a feeling. To be fair, if you're a feral druid or if you're a shadow priest, you kind of expect it by now, but still it doesn't feel good. However, it's not really gonna be bound to remain like this for the entirety of the alpha and the beta cycle of Dragonflight. That is why I was trying to make this video to make you feel a little bit better and a little bit less concerned about the state of the developing of this expansion. This coming from someone who has followed all of the beta cycle of Shadowlands and saw when all of the classes actually and finally came to be in a final complete state before the release of Shadowlands, and you could actually start thinking about, okay, this spec and this class is actually looking good for Shadowlands, this one is looking bad for Shadowlands. This type of discussion was not possible at all 3 or 4 or 5 months before the release of Shadowlands. It only came to be a couple of months, 1 month before the release. So we are still far from that point when it comes to the release of Dragonflight. That is my point for today. So in the hopes that I have actually made someone a little bit less concerned about the poor state of their class right now in the Dragonflight Alpha, we can now leave each other to the rest of this weekend. Thank you, as usual, to all of my Patreon supporters for giving a good and welcome help to allowing me to continue to produce content, to produce videos for WoW as we get deeper into the alpha and then eventually in the beta, which one day I'm sure I will get. That's when I will resign from my position of president of the No Alpha company. But for now, that is what we are stuck with. Also, if you want to support myself and this channel, you can leave a like and a comment down below on this video, as well as subscribing to this channel. That would also be quite helpful. Thank you very much. Lastly, for the more sycophants behaviors of imaginary friends online, you can follow me on Twitter for some normal, well-grounded and perhaps at times too cynical takes about this game, as well as subscribing to my Patreon right down at these two links. With all of this being said and done, we can now leave each other. Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, okay, fine, I am going to give credit where it's due. Congratulations, all of you forecast men and weather women. The weather the last week or so has been quite what you predicted, so for once, congrats.